The old man who trained me said to never, ever look at the security camera feed between 3 a.m. and 3:15. He called it the dead quarter hour. He said that's when the regulars come in and they pay in wet money. Last night, I broke the rule. The 24-hour speedy fill was my first job out of high school. The guy I was replacing, a weathered old-timer named Earl, gave me one night of training. Most of it was just how to work the register and clean the coffee pots. But as he was leaving, he put a firm hand on my shoulder. "Kid, listen good," he said, his eyes dead serious. "The camera monitor, the one that shows the parking lot, between 3 and 3:15, you look at your shoes, you read a magazine, you count the tiles on the floor. You do not look at that screen. That's when the regulars come, and they don't like to be watched." The first few nights were quiet, but on my first solo Saturday night, the curiosity was eating me alive. What was so bad about a security camera? At 2:58 a.m., my heart started thumping. The clock above the door ticked over to 3 o'clock. I stared at the counter, my knuckles white. I could hear the faint buzz of the camera monitor. I lasted 2 minutes. My eyes flicked up. The screen was divided into 4 views. The parking lot was empty. I felt a wave of relief. Earl was just messing with me. Then, on the camera for aisle 3, the chip rack shook violently. A bag of Doritos fell to the floor, but there was no one there. I watched, frozen, as cans of soup unscrewed themselves from their lids in aisle 1. The freezer door swung open and closed by itself. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a prank. This was impossible. I looked at the front door camera. The automatic doors slid open, admitting a cold blast of night air, and then slid shut. Nothing had come in, or nothing I could see. That's when I noticed the puddle. A wet, footprints was forming on the clean floor, step by step, moving from the door straight towards the counter. Towards me. I scrambled back, my shoes slipping on the linoleum, until my back hit the wall of cigarette cartons. The wet footprints stopped directly on the other side of the counter. I could smell it now, a faint, briny odor like a stagnant pond. The cash drawer shot open with a loud ding that made me yelp. I pressed my palms over my eyes, not just to block the sight, but as if I could push the impossible back out of my brain. I heard the soft, wet sound of bills being counted. When I dared to look, the drawer was closed. Lying on the counter was a single, sodden $2 bill. The security camera monitor had cleared. It now showed a perfect, live view of the empty store. And in the center of the screen, perfectly framed by the counter, was me, pale, wide-eyed, and utterly alone. As I watched my own terrified face on the monitor, the automatic doors behind me slid open and then shut with a soft whoosh. I found the previous night watchman's logbook hidden in a desk drawer. The last entry read, "They don't walk through the doors. They walk through the walls. I'm hiding in the panic room. I think they know I'm in here." The old Henderson mill had been converted into artisan office spaces, but it still felt industrial and hollow at night. My patrol was 4 floors of exposed brick and creaky wooden floors. In the security office, I found a dusty, leather-bound logbook in a locked drawer I'd finally pried open. It was from a watchman named Joe, dated 10 years prior. The early entries were normal. Floor 2, light out in hallway. Heard noises on roof. Checked, was pigeons. But towards the end, the writing became frantic. October 12th, heard voices in the old weaving room. No one on cameras. Felt like I was being followed all night. October 14th, saw a shadow in the knitting department. It didn't cast a shadow on the wall behind it. It just absorbed the light. October 15th, they don't walk through the doors. They walk through the walls. I saw one phase through the brick next to the freight elevator. It turned and looked at me. The final entry, scrawled in shaky, almost illegible handwriting, made my blood run cold. They're attracted to the sound of my footsteps. I'm hiding in the panic room. I think they know I'm in here. If you're reading this, for God's sake, don't make a sound. The entry ended abruptly. I dropped the book like it was on fire. The office felt suddenly much smaller, much darker. I tried to tell myself it was a joke, a prank left for the next guy. Then I heard it. A soft, scraping sound from the hallway, like something heavy being dragged slowly across the old wooden floor. But it wasn't the sound of something on the floor. It was the sound of something inside the floor. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The scraping moved past the security office door and continued down the hall. I waited an eternity in the silence. I had to call this in. I reached for the radio on my belt, my movements painfully slow. My thumb found the talk button. I took a shallow breath to speak. And from the other side of the drywall, right next to my head, a dry, raspy voice whispered, "Quiet. The graveyard shift is a trade. You exchange the sunlight for silence, and the company of people for the company of your own thoughts. But you're never truly alone in those empty buildings. You're just sharing the shift with whatever was there before you, and has no intention of ever clocking out." My job was to sit in a soundproof server room for 8 hours and watch diagnostic screens. The only rule was to never, under any circumstances, wear noise-canceling headphones. Now I know why. The OmniCorp data center was a cathedral of technology. A vast, windowless room filled with towering black server racks, all emitting a constant, deafening hum. My job was to monitor the system for hardware failures. The hum was so loud you could feel it in your teeth. On my first day, the day shift guy, a nervous-looking man named Phil, pointed to a line in the employee handbook. It was bolded and underlined. Acoustic awareness is mandatory. Headphones of any kind are strictly prohibited. I asked why. He just shook his head. You'll hear it eventually. Everyone does. For weeks, it was just the hum. It was maddening, but I got used to it. Then, one night around 2 a.m., I heard it. A voice. It was faint, buried deep within the wall of sound, like a radio station barely tuning in. "Help," it whispered. I sat up straight, my heart leaping into my throat. The hum continued, unchanging. I must be hallucinating from the noise. I went back to my screens. A few minutes later, it came again, clearer this time. A woman's voice, laced with static. "Can anyone hear me?" It was coming from the server banks themselves. I stood up, my chair rolling away behind me. I walked slowly down the main aisle, between the glowing, humming racks. The voice grew clearer with every step. "I'm trapped in here," the voice sobbed, now sounding like it was emanating from a specific server labeled Archive 7. The upload, it went wrong. They said my consciousness would be backed up. They lied. I reached a trembling hand out towards the cold metal of the server. The moment my fingers were an inch from it, the entire data center fell silent. The hum just stopped. The silence was more terrifying than the noise. In the absolute quiet, a new sound came from the server's internal fans. It was a low, ragged, human breathing. And then the voice, now crystal clear and right next to my ear, whispered, "Thank you for letting me out."